Hey guys, SelvsLeaderCarson here. I'm doing now the lore of all three characters, Cendius being the first, Mathiel being the second, and the last being Kavasta, which is my main character. So I'm gonna give you a heads up before we start everything. We're gonna be doing these three characters and in this kind of order of lore. The characters are Cendius, Mathiel, and Kavasta, and the lore ideas we're gonna be doing is gonna be, and yes, this is without sound, just so I can be able to talk to you guys more clear. It's about where they were born and what year during the Great Galactic War were they born. And there were 30 years in the Great Galactic War, so I don't know the exact numbering, so just be ready for me saying year 10, year 20, year 30 on Great Galactic War stuff, okay? And it's gonna go in this order. It's gonna go from birthplace, early background / history, personality and powers, their philosophy. Where are they now? Actually, personality and powers will also be in part of personality and powers. And references or notes to where their names came from. So, other than that, we'll get the lore started soon. And yes, this is it's going to be a change of scenery soon. You'll see. Hello everybody, my name is SelvsLeaderCarson here, and I'm going to be providing you with the lore of one of the most popular Sith that has already been getting a huge wave of support. His name is Darth Cendius. Now, for those who have watched most of my Let's Plays, or a few of the Let's Plays, and you understand the kind of character he is, this wouldn't be a surprise to you, but I will provide a warning anyways. The warning is, this is going to be a spoiler of who he is, and what Darth Cendius' personality is like. He's hard to describe, and I'm going to be providing you the lore, as this has been one of the most popular and most hugest demands ever. Like, for example, a commentator, which I will keep anonymous, said, "We wish to hear the lore about Cendius and Mathiel. Will you provide us lore about the two? We want to hear it, and could you please make a video about it?" Unquote. Well, I'm going to be making you this video, so you're definitely going to be hearing lore about Cendius first. The first thing you need to learn is his birthplace. Now, who is Darth Cendius and where was he born? Well, we don't know where he was born exactly, but we can confirm that he was indeed born with the name Cendius. He doesn't change his name, so it makes it stand out completely odd and unique within the Sith Order. Because usually, for example, the Anakin Skywalker series, when he became a Darth and a Sith, he changed his name to Darth Vader and stuck with that name, just like Palpatine was mostly considered Sidious. Cendius chose to keep his name as Darth Cendius, as he said it would stand out. But where was Cendius born? We don't know where he was born. It was actually kind of odd to not know where he was born. We can confirm that he's somewhere born around the core worlds or the mid-rim worlds. But there is actually a rumor spreading that he was born in Hutt space. But this is actually not confirmed, because we're not sure if he was born in the Hutt spaces, the mid-rim, or the core worlds. So we're not sure where Cendius was born, and this is going to be one of the biggest mysteries of where he came from. But enough of Korriban, let's try and get a different scenery here. Now, isn't this a better scenery right here? We're doing it on Dromund Kaas, Darth Cendius' early background and history. Now, for those who don't know, Darth Cendius continuously calls himself the Lord of Chaos and Control. Many people have been arguing that this is a contradiction in Cendius' philosophy. They say, you can't be a chaotic man while wanting control, because according to them, they said control means creating order and controlling people in an orderly manner. Now, this isn't completely true, but it's not completely wrong. Cendius believes in chaos overall, but he doesn't believe in true chaos. He believes in only anarchist chaotic worlds, ideas. Thus, he uses control as to force others to create chaos, harm, and disorder in order to make lives miserable and fall even more to the dark side with their hatred and anger, which many Sith philosophers call unique. Now, let's get to the history of Darth Cendius. Darth Cendius, by the end of the Cold War, was 29 years old. And probably a year has passed by after the Cold War had ended, meaning he is 30, We can then confirm that Cendius was born during the Great Galactic War, 10 years, if we do the math, after the Great Galactic War had started. Darth Cendius was a member, actually, of the Republic. His family served the Republic Army and Navy. They didn't actually serve the Empire. Cendius was born in the Galactic Republic. Now, many fans will be questioning, then how did Darth Cendius become a Sith, and why did he turn to the dark side? Well, to answer this question, it has to only do with the conflicts and the miserable life that Cendius had to go through. When Cendius was 10 or 11 years old, his father was killed in the Rim campaign during the Great Galactic War. This has somewhat had an effect on him because he looked up to his father as a great man. But when Darth Cendius took over, Cendius claimed that his father was a stubborn old fool who knew nothing about doing what is powerful, only to do what is right and what is just to him. Now, we do know this, that his mother, however, was able to live on 4 years later, but this had a more shocking effect. His mother, he was more closer than his own father, was killed in an unknown space battle. This eventually left Cendius an orphan, as he was unable to take care of himself. But he was able to inherit his family's inheritance and wealth of their long service to the Republic. Now, this is somewhat sad to Cendius' part, to lose both your parents, but does that mean he will fall to the dark side? No, not completely yet. Cendius, after a year of living with an abusive aunt and uncle, finally left his only family left and decided to go live on his own. He took a transport and actually wanted to go live in Corellia, as he said, "I will go and learn how to use my military strategies to fight the Sith." But by the time that happened, or before that could even happen, Cendius' transport was attacked by slave traders. The raiders had attacked Cendius and killed every Republic trooper or officer, but kept the civilians alive. As the slave owner claimed, the slave trader claimed, "We will make good slaves of them, especially this red-haired fool." Now, we do know that Cendius had to live as a slave for the next 2 years as a slave, and thus the name stuck with him, as why many Sith, or many people, called him a slave. But this didn't really have an effect to Cendius. He was still convinced and still loyal to the Republic at this point. But this is what would have the dramatic effect of turning Kavasta, or what many people call Cendius. Sorry, I'm kidding. Cendius stayed Cendius. I'm mixing up my stories here. What made Cendius fall to the dark side? Cendius had seen a girl during his second year as a slave of an unknown blonde girl. It was a human, as it was confirmed, but as Cendius, we don't know her name exactly. Cendius gave her the nickname Sweetie, as she said that she was always a sweetie to him and would always care for him. Now Cendius gave her 2 nicknames. One would say is Sweetie, and another is Nini. Nini was more of the official nickname, as many historians and lore historians would agree. It was actually an odd relationship, as Cendius had fallen in love with her as she did, but they couldn't keep their relationship in public, or else the slave traders would separate them for good. And what made it as a more complication, is that Cendius' slave owner and slave trader was actually infatuated with the young blonde and wanted her as a trophy. Cendius was outraged by this, but he kept the relationship still secret. And after 4 months of dating and still keeping the relationship a secret, Cendius secretly married her with another slave, blessing the marriage. This had a huge effect to him, as he said that no matter what would happen to him, Cendius would always die happy now. However, a month after the marriage, the slave owner and slave traders had found out about the marriage because of an incompetent and stubborn slave who wanted to ruin Cendius and didn't like Cendius for stealing what he said was the girl of his dreams. Cendius however, continued to keep the relationship, unaware that the slave traders had now figured out about the secret marriage. The slave owner and trader wanted to make Cendius suffer, but they wanted to do it, according to them, at the right time. After 3 months of the secret marriage, Cendius eventually was ready to lead a rebellion against the slave owners and traders. Slave owner and traders are the same thing, so I should just use slave traders. Against the slave traders. But before that could happen, 2 slaves ran who were actually loyal and actually selfish enough to tell the slave traders of the plotted rebellion, revealed the plot, and the rebellion failed. Only 5 slaves were killed in this, and the rest were beaten exclusively. After Cendius was brought forth before the slave leader, the slaver, he was actually forced to watch that his wife, Nini, as many people called her now, was now being licked and eventually raped by the leader of the slavers. This made Cendius vow that he would kill the slave trader, but to make matters worse, the slaver, decided to throw his wife into the rest of the slavers, and his wife Nini was raped exclusively. We don't know how many times she was raped, but according to by one slave who was witnessed and is still alive even now, he confirmed that she was raped probably more than 12 times. Cendius was outraged by this, as he was forced to watch his wife being raped. Eventually, Cendius became so enraged, he was able to tap into the Force and give himself to the dark side. Cendius was able to kill all the slavers who raped her, and those who had been treating the other slaves with disrespect and brutality. He killed them mercilessly with force chokes, lightnings, and what some would say is driving some of them crazy. When the slave leader saw this, he immediately grabbed Nini and threatened Cendius to stand down or he would kill her. Cendius, filled with the dark side, was ready to kill the slave leader. But before he could do that, the slaver, regardless of whether he was going to let her go or not, decided to kill Nini in front of Cendius. Cendius had completely fallen to the dark side at this point, as there was no turning back for him. He had lost the woman of his life and the one thing he cared about, and killed the slave leader slowly. According to one slave who witnessed the execution of the slave leader, he said, Cendius first drove his mind insane, and then he force choked him slowly, but didn't kill him with a force choke. He let him go and then electrocuted him, and then force choked him again, and eventually killed him by snapping his neck. Cendius' revenge was fulfilled, but he wasn't satisfied. A week later, after floating in the deep space for almost what seemed to them as a millennia, the imperial traders demanded to know where their slave traders were that had, according to them, their fresh batch of slaves. When they entered the ship, armed and ready to kill the slavers, they were shocked that all the slavers were dead, as well as the slaves that had collaborated with the slavers. According to one imperial trooper, they looked at the walls and it was covered with blood. They demanded to know who did this, and so they would have him executed. Cendius stood boldly and said, "It was I. Will you kill me now?" Before they would execute him, a Sith Lord stopped him and demanded to know how he killed him. Cendius replied that he only killed him with a burst of energy. The Sith Lord, impressed, demanded to know what that energy was. He said, "It felt like the Force." The Sith Lord knew that it was actually the Force, and demanded that all of his men under his command to take all Force sensitives to Korriban and turn them into Sith. By this time, Cendius was being transported, moved around a lot, and we can then confirm that Cendius was at this point living a life of the Sith. He was still having to live as a slave, as he said he refused to become a Sith. But when the opportunity arrived that the Sith Academy was rebuilt, and the unnamed Sith Lord once again approached him saying, "Become Sith. Become what you always were destined to be." Cendius eventually agreed, under the condition that he was promised power. The Sith Lord, lying to him, unaware of what Cendius would become, agreed and said he was meant for greatness. This ends Cendius' early background in history, and it is a very tragic one. How a good man could actually fall to the dark side and become an evil man is what many people would be shocked at. Was Darth Cendius actually ever going to serve the Republic? We don't know. Would he return to the Republic? This is now confirmed that he will never return to the Republic. What we do know is that Cendius is now absolutely loyal to the Sith Empire. His father and mother's enemies he serves. However, what we can say is interesting is that Cendius actually now supports the Sith Empire. He said that he says, and I quote, "My father and mother were fools. They should have surrendered to the Sith a long time ago. When I learned how to become, when the Sith Lord knew that I had the Force, he immediately welcomed me and turned me into Sith, but not as a Sith. But not until the Sith Academy opened itself up to slaves. I had to live as a citizen marked as a slave." But why did Cendius join the Sith Empire eventually? We don't know his main reason, but many would say that he wanted to gain political power and to become that very evil that he vowed to destroy. Cendius made a secret vow, which I will reveal now, was that he said, and I quote, "I vow to destroy every single man that dare opposes me. The love of my life has been gone, so I will share that pain with the galaxy. The whole universe will know my anger until I am appeased." Cendius never confirms when that anger was appeased, but even today he is still causing havoc and destruction. Now, I'm going to be ending the early background and history on Dromund Kaas, and we're going to get another change of scenery, as we feel it should be a really good change of scenery. So let's go to another planet. Sorry about that, folks. I apologize. I need to add a few more things on with the early background and history. Now, I have been doing the numbers, so it would make more sense to explain the timeline to this. So, Cendius was born 10 years after the Great Galactic War started. 10 or 11 years later, we could say possibly 11, because it would make more sense, his father was killed in the Rim campaign. So this would make it probably around 3660, or 3660, and then 4 or 5 years later, which we could assume 5, because it's probably best to assume the last date, his mother was killed. So this would mean Cendius was 16 at the time. He left his abusive aunt and uncle a year later, which is confirmed to be 1 year, not exactly 1 year, but close to 1 year, which would make him 17. 2 years later, he's 19 at this time. So this is probably a good assumption that he's doing this at the end of the Great Galactic War, and he was forced to live as a civilian, but still wearing the title of slave in the Empire. But was he treated as a second-class citizen? You could say he was, but Cendius still rose up and got to the most powerful position, which is none other than the Dark Council. Does this make Cendius feared? You could say so. But does it make him respected? Probably not by a few Sith. Now, I will add on a few more things. Was Cendius considered I wish to add the dreams that Darth Cendius had before he decided to become a Sith. He lived under the second-class society, under the Sith Empire. Was it by choice? You could say no, but you could say he had a chance to leave a couple of times. Darth Cendius decided, we're just gonna stick with Cendius. Cendius was a reluctant member of the Sith Empire as a citizen, but he did enjoy some luxuries that the Sith Lords and Sith apprentices actually respected him because they could feel the Force in him, but they would never allow a slave to become a Sith. Those doors were not open until before, let's say, 2 or 3 years before the end of the Great Galactic War's Cold War, you could say. Cendius still lived as a second-class citizen, but he was starting to build a philosophy that he could actually rule the Empire if he actually was allowed to join the Sith Order. Does this make him a possible candidate to the other Dark Lords of the Sith, like Darth Nihilus, Darth Sion, Darth Revan, Darth Malak, Darth Bane, Darth Adendu, and all the other Darths that are pretty much feared, respected, and well known? You could debate. That is a debate. You could say Cendius could be at that rising title where he's probably just like them, but not as popular as you could say as them. Unless fans decide to make a comic series out of him, and Cendius actually starts to become what people want him to be, a popular Sith that they'll write stories about him. But now I'm going to get to the personality and powers of Cendius, and I'm also going to wrap it up even on this planet where they are now. And yes, we are on Alderaan if you haven't figured that out. So, what is Cendius' personality, philosophy, and powers? I should have added that when I was making that statement, but I'm still going to explain. Darth Cendius has 3 things that you could sum him up as. He's power hungry, or the 3 words are power, chaos, and fear. Cendius is a power-hungry man. He's arrogant and he wants that power and wants to be in charge. He feels as though he should be the one controlling everything. If you see in the videos how his transformation begins, you would see it. He does respect resilience. When he was still a young apprentice, you could say he respected resilience. He respected people to stand to their beliefs and stand to who they are. As a Sith apprentice, he respected the strong, the brave, and the wise. Right. Only those who were strong, brave, and wiser than him. He didn't respect anyone weaker than him. Now, in probably the first part of the video, you could see Cendius was flirting, as I chose the flirt option, which would suit Cendius, of him flirting with a girl that was giving him a warning advice. You could say that Cendius was reluctant to fall in love, but flirted with the girl because he thought of Nini in her. But when Cendius saw that Nini was killed by the Overseer, Cendius had reawoken and let his darkness back in him. He realized that in order to feel true love, you could never feel true love. Cendius says, "You can never feel true love. Love will not open the doors to you. You must take it by force and force people to love you." Does this have a psychological effect on him? You could say yes. But Cendius is choosing to be power hungry. He wants power to be in his hands and stay in his hands. If he has to share power, he wants to share power only with his equals, his allies, and those who are stronger than him. Now, when it says control and chaos, Cendius is, as he still claims to be, the Dark Lord of the chaos and control. He believes that chaos is the only true form of the Force, and says that anyone who gives in to chaos to cause havoc, destruction, and chaos in the galaxy will know my pain, and know what it means to be Sith. He believes that if you give in to the dark side, and you allow chaos into your heart, you will be allowed so many options within the Force. You will be allowed to do many things without limitations, because you will be feeding off of the dark energies and dark side affiliations, you could say, like in SWTOR and KOTOR. You could be feeding off of the dark side energies, off of people's anger, misery, and hatred. Well, anger and hatred are the same, so misery, anger, and depression. You get the idea. But when he wanted to create chaos, he wants people to suffer. He doesn't, not physically, but psychologically. He wants you to accept chaos either as an enemy or as a friend. If you accept chaos as your friend, you're pretty much becoming just like Cendius, and you will have to sacrifice many things. Now, when it comes to control, he wants to control people, as I've said before, to be in charge, but he wants So he does believe in some form of order. He believes in order that people have to be complete and utterly loyal to him. No second loyalties, no beliefs that you can be loyal to your loved ones, only loyalty to him. He wants people to die for him, for his beliefs, and for anything that he stands for. Anyone who refuses to carry out his orders, or even disobeys his orders, or even is unable to complete the mission or his orders that he had given out, he kills without mercy. He makes an example out of people who die. He makes an example out of people who do not succeed in their missions, and says, "You must not become like this man, for if you do, you will be next." Cendius claims this is the only way to truly force people to become. This is the only true way to force someone to truly give up their lives for him, without any emotion and without any fear. But he uses his dark side powers to feed off of people's anger, energy, rage, depression, worries, and any emotion that they have. Now, Cendius's powers. We do know Darth Cendius is indeed a powerful Sith. We know he is. We could see that in many videos of my Let's Play, that is. We know that he actually respects power. The only person that Cendius you could say fears is the Emperor, the Dreadmasters, which are probably dead, most of them, if anybody has completed the operations, that is. Are the Sith Emperor, the Dreadmasters, and the Dark Council members that are just as equal to him of his powers. Cendius fears and respects men and women who are much powerful than him. He pretends loyalty to the Sith Emperor. He knows he cannot kill the Sith Emperor and will not challenge him. He knows he will not ever win, thus he decides to throw his loyalty to them, but demands anyone who follows under his command or under him must serve Cendius with complete loyalty. They must have loyalty to the Emperor second. Now, you could say this is a contradiction. Why would Cendius serve the Sith Emperor but want people to serve him? Well, you could say as a Sith philosopher or an Imperial philosopher, to serve Darth Cendius is to serve the Emperor. So there is no harm in betraying your loyalty to the Emperor if you serve Darth Cendius. Now, the powers that he uses are mostly the Force. He rarely uses his lightsaber, as he doesn't seem to be very skilled in it, but when he has to use it, he uses it very effectively. He's mostly known to use the Force Lightning, or the Force Lightning, or the Force Lightning Strike. He even uses Chain Lightning and Crushing Darkness with affliction. Sorry, I pronounced that wrong. But so Darth Cendius could be ranked one of the most feared and most powerful Sith Lords ever, or Dark Lord of the Siths. But Darth Cendius says, and I quote, "My legacy will last forever. Even if I am to die, which I will never die a coward's death, I will live on forever. Even if I die, my name will last for 1,000 years." Well, to many people, his name did not last forever, or not that we know of. But we do know that Cendius is revered as a powerful Sith, so he must have been remembered somehow in some way. The main reason we could say that Cendius isn't remembered very well is because, well, the Jedi, during the 1,000-Year War with the Jedi and the Sith, you could say that after the Sith were defeated finally, all records of Cendius were burned and destroyed, so his philosophies were pretty much gone. The philosophy of Cendius was this, though, as we can say and confirm. Cendius believes if you truly wish to give in to the dark side, you must have some emotion, but you must use that emotion only to your benefit. If you become a Sith with no emotion, make it useful and turn the darkness to others. Now, this means basically this. Cendius says that if you have emotions, or some, as you could say, light side points, Cendius wants you to use that only as a sympathy message to say, we'll aid you, those who become my allies, if you choose to make sure that you are utterly loyal to me. but Cendius is truly dark-sided, no matter what. You could say he is completely evil, too. He doesn't show any love to anyone after the death of Nini. He only shows any emotion to those who are within his inner circle, and even then, no one knows who's in his inner circle. And no, you cannot say his inner circle is the companions. The companions don't really count, as Cendius sees them as toys and bodyguards, or even worse, as servants to his master plan of ruling the galaxy and destroying. And as he said, I will destroy the galaxy and reshape it in my vision. Now, where is Darth Cendius now? Well, we don't know where exactly he is now, but we do know he's fighting the Republic. He shows no love to the Republic, even though that's where his parents came from. And even worse is that he's also looking to gain more knowledge. Cendius wants to gain the same knowledge as the Emperor did, the power of immortality. As he's lived almost thousands of years, Cendius wants to gain that power and be able to live forever. But that knowledge is very sacred, or is very rarely seen. So we're not sure how Cendius will be able to gain that power. What we do know is he is ruling the Sith Empire as a Dark Council member. He knows how to play the political game, and is getting more Moths and Sith Lords and Darths to serve under him, and to fight for him. He's trying to politically take over the Empire, as he wants Moths, Sith Lords, Darths to agree to fight with him or work with him, and thereby Cendius will become the de facto leader under the Emperor, and you could say almost the de facto leader of the Dark Council. Darth Cendius knows that he will never be able to take the Empire from the Emperor, so he wants to try and politically take it over, as a sign that he is the second most powerful Sith Lord under the Sith Empire. Now, would this really make sense? It can, as the Sith Emperor demands that everyone is to serve him and sacrifice their lives for him. But Darth Cendius doesn't. But that doesn't mean that someone can serve under someone. That doesn't mean that someone can become under him and serve as you could say, a chancellor, a prime minister, or the de facto leader of the Dark Council, as the supreme Dark Council member, or another title name. But Cendius knows he needs to gain control of the Empire politically. Taking control of it by brute force would mean deaths of thousands, and would not be able to help cause chaos in his own form. It would cause chaos within his own ranks, and many would die, and he would not be able to gain men and women who could possibly be more useful alive than dead. Now, we do know this. Darth Cendius is by far the most dangerous Sith you could ever imagine. Keeping him alive if on your side is a gift, but keeping him around you as an enemy is even more dangerous. But I want to wrap this up in his ship, so just give me a minute and I'll be there in a minute. So here we are, folks, at the conclusion of Darth Cendius' lore. So we finally get a last look at who he was and what he stands for. Now, Darth Cendius definitely represents a new kind of way to become a Sith. He claims that he is the true face of the dark side, and he is the face of the Empire. Now, Cendius is indeed loyal to the Empire, as he sees the benefit of actually becoming a Sith and actually living under the Empire. You live in a majocracy where only those who have the power of the Force are more superior under that society. Now, many people have been wondering, why does Cendius wear his mask and take it off only around some of his companions? Well, you could say that Cendius only takes his mask off within his inner circle and those he feels he can trust. An example would be Kemval or Andronicus. He trusts the pirate enough because the pirate Andronicus shows that he wants to work with Cendius, and not as an ally, or as some would say, as a friend, but as a servant. As you can see in the cinematic, or the conclusion of Cendius' walkthrough, He said that Andronicus did bow to Cendius, showing that that Andronicus is probably being obedient and subservient to Cendius. Now, this is also what makes Cendius different. Cendius believes in another thing. He does say, when many people say that Cendius may be mocking the way of the Sith, like Thanaton said, Cendius believes this. He says that any man, woman, human or non-human, could become true Sith. All you have to do is allow your arrogance, your fear, your hatred, and your misery to help intertwine your darkness inside you. And if you give yourself truly to the dark side, you will become true Sith. Now, this is what he believes, and which would explain why Cendius believes that any man, woman, or alien or non-alien should be able to serve him and become Sith, because he wants more people to serve the Empire, thus increasing its chances of being ruled under him. Now, those who do stand in his way, or refuse to serve him, or even go along with him, or even stay neutral, he believes them to be weak and incompetent, and wants to destroy them by using the chaos and anger he has as vengeance, as a way of destroying their love of their life, their hopes and dreams, thus thereby bringing the hatred and anger out on them, to give themselves truly to the dark side. So, I want you folks to decide, who is Darth Cendius? Is he a legendary Sith that should be remembered forever? Or was he just a revolutionary Sith that wanted to only take control of power, that only wanted to gain power and to use it to his own advantage? I want you folks to decide, for you must remember, and always should remember, that Darth Cendius represents chaos, control, power, and the future of what a Sith Empire could be.